Okay, let's think about functions. We've looked at some basic Python things at the moment, such as converting from one type to another. We understand a little bit about ints and strings and so on, and that's all great. But there are times when we want to run a set of commands, but we might want to run it more than once. In fact, it might be a calculation, for example, and you might want to run that calculation 3 or 4 times depending on the user's input. So you don't want to write that set of code 4 or 5 times. You can just write it once and then call it. And this is where functions come in really, really handy. So they're also a nice way of maybe tidying up your code as well. And to basically create a function, we just type def. And whatever we type next will be the name of our function. Now, as long as we don't use a recognized word that Python knows and understands what to do with, we'll be fine. We can call it whatever we like. But like we did with variables, it makes sense to give it a name that means something to us later on. So I could, just for the purpose of this little demonstration, I can just call it a function. And all functions have these open closed brackets. Sometimes you put things in those brackets, sometimes you don't. It depends on what you want your function to do. So in this case, I'm just going to call mine a function. Now, we mentioned before that indentations are important in Python. And if you're using a good IDE, hopefully it puts the 4 spaces from the left indented for you. If it doesn't, you're going to just have to press the space bar 4 times. So we can see now, whatever we type next, that's going to live inside this function that we've called a function. So I could, for example, just create a variable called my message, and I'm just basically going to create a string. This is a string. Okay, string of letters, string of characters, nice, simple, straight forward. And then what I can do underneath that, I can say print, and then I want the name of my variable. So what I should get there is my message. Now, you might have noticed as I'm typing, the IDE, in this case, Thonny, is trying to help me complete the code. If you want this feature, you need to go to Tools, and then you need to go to Options, and then you'll see here under this Editor tab, there is a tick box here, which you can just put the tick in the box that says automatically propose completions while typing. So if you want Thonny to try and help you with your code by trying to enable the auto completion of commands, etc., all you got to do is put that tick in that box. If you find it's irritating and it just gets in your way, then obviously just come back here and take that tick out of that box. Now, if I run this now, probably what's going to happen is, well, nothing. Something did happen. We can see here in the shell that it's ran and it's not thrown any error messages. So as a function, it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. So you remember earlier on I said you have to call a function. So when you want to use these lines of code, you have to tell Python that you want to run it. Okay, you want to take these lines of code and now you want to use them and utilize them in your program. So I could write lots more lines of code here, and at any point I can just call this function. And you do that literally by just typing the name of the function with the open close brackets. This time when I run it, you can see It's ran through this line of text and then this line of text, and then it's ended and the program's finished and it's printed. This is a string because this is exactly what we told it to do. So I can have whatever I like inside this function, and it will just sit there and do nothing until I tell it to use it by calling it like this. So if I then want to do something else and call it again later, I can just call it again. You can see now it's ran it twice. So functions will become something that you'll see a lot of. You'll write probably quite a lot of your own as you start to, create your own little programs using Python. They're not just using Python, they're used in pretty much every coding language out there. The syntax is slightly different, but they all work much the same way. So they are useful, they are used a lot, and it is important to understand how they work and how you set those up.